Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's Parent and Family webinar here at UC San Diego. Go Tritons. We're so excited to have a great group of panelists, next slide, and hosts for you today. My name is Dr. Ebony Williams. I'm the Director of Virtual Experience and Peer Engagement Initiatives. Our hosts today are ABC Cheryl Harrelson and Vice Chancellor Allison Satterlin. Next slide. This is just some information about what our plans are, and you will hear more details about what classes will look like in the fall as we have ABC Carlos Jensen joining us today, as well as some individuals from the colleges who can speak to how your student is getting into classes. Next slide. We also have our housing director here, making sure that you have all the information that you need, as well as one of our doctors who has been lead in making sure our campus stays safe and follows certain protocols. So you'll hear what we have planned for the fall. I know a lot of you are itching to know, why are we trying to do things in the fall? Well, if you think about a month from now, go back in a month, we didn't know what to anticipate for now. And so now fall starts in a month and a half, and we're optimistic about what might be possible. And we hope that you join us in the optimism, but make the best choice for your family moving forward. Next slide. With that, I'd like to invite Vice Chancellor Satterlin for welcoming remarks.
Thank you so much, Ebony. Good evening, everybody. And on behalf of all of us at UC San Diego, we'd like to extend to you a very warm welcome and thank you for your time this evening. And of course, before we get started, I want to thank my colleagues for their time and expertise tonight and let you know that we anticipate we won't be able to answer all of your questions, but we are taking all of the questions we can't answer and adding them to our frequently asked questions pages on our Return to Learn site. We know how important it is for you to have the information that you need to be guiding and advising your student and loved one. And of course, welcome to our Triton community, parents and families. I wanted to share on a personal note that I'm also a mom of a UC sophomore, and I understand how complicated this coming academic year is, and that the start of the school year will certainly be different than we anticipated this time last year. But we are working incredibly diligently with creativity and perseverance to ensure our students are well supported both in and out of the classroom. So tonight we're going to be providing details on the resources that are available to our students and to you as parents and families. Again, our primary goal is to create a safe and supportive community during this particularly challenging time. And tonight also to answer as many questions as we can for you, again, to guide your decision making at home as a family. We're also going to ask your support, me personally asking parent to parent to remind your student to be prepared to wear face coverings, to participate in daily symptom screening, and practice physical distancing both on and off campus, and also good hygiene and care and respect for one another. So with that in mind, I'd like to go ahead and get us started. Again, our goal is to engage you as parents and family members to make sure that we can be safe together and support the academic and sociocultural success of your student.
Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Satterlin. Our next speaker is for representing our colleges. As you know, UC San Diego is unique in the space that we have 7 college system that allows for our students to have an intimate experience and build community in a smaller group, as we are a very large public institution who wants to create community in as many ways as possible. Next slide, Dean Sherry Mallory.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. So I'm going to first talk about course enrollment orientation, parent and family orientation, and opportunities that we have to engage your students. For returning students, registration for classes occurred during spring quarter. For our entering first year and transfer students, course registration began this week. Now, advising staff in the college have been in touch with your student. Each entering first year and transfer student did receive a set of personalized course recommendations for fall quarter. And all of our students, both new and returning, have had access to both college and major advisors throughout the summer via the Virtual Advising Center. That gives students the ability to submit questions and to have staff respond within 1 to 2 business days. For orientation, all new students completed a series of online pre-orientation modules. As parents and family members, you also have access to those modules at mycompass.ucsd.edu. You'll be prompted to create a guest account, and then you'll be able to go through and see information both for you and what we've shared with your students. Each college is going to be offering orientation for all new first-year and transfer students. This year, we are going to be doing that virtually. We'll have a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous sessions. Participation for students is mandatory, and new student orientation is designed to provide students with information and resources to help them succeed at UC San Diego, to provide opportunities for them to meet other new students as well as continuing students, and to learn more about opportunities for getting involved at the colleges and at the university. Each college is going to be offering a virtual orientation for family, parents and family members as well. Attendance for that is optional but encouraged. We've included links to college-specific information on the slide, so hopefully you'll be able to learn more. We also have been reaching out to parent and family members as students have provided your contact information. Attending a parent and family virtual orientation program will provide you with an opportunity to meet college staff, to learn about services and resources available to you and your student. All programs will be conducted in English, but I think many of us will be working on getting those dubbed into other languages, and we'll share out those videos after. In terms of online community, each college has created opportunities for students to engage virtually. You can learn more about what we're doing at thecolleges.ucsd.edu. Each college also offers a wide range of student organizations, student government, and programming, both for students living on campus and those living off campus. Our goal is to not have your students spend their idle time sitting in their room alone, but to have opportunities to build community, to get to know and to interact with other students. And programming for students is also available through a variety of offices, including the International Students and Programs Office, UC San Diego Recreation, and the Virtual Student Union.
Thank you so much, Dean Mallory. Next up is AVC Carlos Jensen. We'd like to say that we predicted that we would need him. He's the AVC of Educational Innovation, but we're very happy to have him given where we are in the world today. Next slide.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you and share with you a little bit about our plans for in-person and remote instruction in the fall. Our approach to planning for fall term has been to put safety first, but at the same time recognize that different students need different things, and different learning environments work better for different students. Therefore, we have a mix of in-person and remote classes. In-person classes will take place only with appropriate safeguards, including upgrades to HVAC, 6-foot distancing between seats, and maximum 50 students in a classroom, no matter how large the room is. Next. This fall, we're going to be offering 4 different categories of classes. The vast majority of classes are going to be remote, and that means that all elements of this course are offered remote. Nothing is offered in person, and it's remote and asynchronous, which means that there isn't a specific meeting time. Students can participate in whatever time zone they're at, and it will have every opportunity to do that. Hybrid means that the teaching is happening on campus, or some elements of the course are happening on campus, and some are happening remote. Every student can choose to participate fully remote. If you want to participate in person, you need to sign up for the appropriate section and show up at your assigned times. And then we have 2 categories of in-person classes. There's the regular in-person, which means that the instruction and most of the classroom activities will happen in person, but if you need to, you can still participate remotely and asynchronously. And then a small number of courses that are in-person only. And these are courses that are designed to give you a hands-on type of experience. So lab courses, some theater and dance courses. These are courses that are specifically not a bottleneck. So you don't need to take them this term in order to graduate, or the department will have arranged for alternatives. Next. As you're getting ready to register, please pick the modality that you're actually planning on attending. So please don't sign up for an in-person class if you don't have an intention of participating in person. If the remote section classes are full, the departments will go through later on and shift classes from in-person to remote if that's where we see that the student body wants to go. And understand that as we get closer to fall, we will keep our eye on the situation. And so it may be the case that some classes that were currently planned for in-person will shift to remote, but we will not be shifting remote classes to in-person classes. Next. To assist you in your learning, especially if you join us remotely, UC San Diego provides a variety of different support. The first is technical support. And as a student, your student will be able to reach out, get help with software licenses, and most of the software that we use in classes is free license to the software. But we also have tech support, and that, you know, if you need support with your own personal laptop, we will try to support you. If your student doesn't have the necessary technology, there's also a laptop lending program that they can apply for. We will offer all of our regular tutoring, advising, supplemental instruction, etc., in a mix of in-person and remote modes. Some activities will only be available remote because of space constraints and safety constraints, but we will have a mix of those. Most classrooms, well, all residence halls, and most of the common areas are currently being upgraded or have already been upgraded in terms of Wi-Fi and bandwidth, so that there will be enough bandwidth here for every student to participate remotely. One of the things that we want to make clear is that no one's required to take any in-person classes unless you fall into this category of international students who need a visa to enter the United States. Those are things outside of our control. But even if you choose to live in the residence hall because that is the right living and learning environment for you, you do not have a requirement for taking any in-person classes. And as we return to the classroom, all faculty and students are expected to adhere to new rules around mask use, testing, quarantines, and building occupancy. And it's going to take a collaborative effort to make this campus operate safely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, AVC Jensen. I hope that provided some clarity around what classes could look like if we get to a better place in San Diego. Next up, who has kept all of us safe and our family safe, is Dr. Angela Socia. Next slide. And she'll provide some updates around what's going on and how we plan to test your family members on our campus.
Yeah, thanks, Ebony, and good evening, everyone. You'll see some of why we're encouraging, have some encouragement about what the fall quarter is going to be like. In the US, after the very difficult July, we saw this incredible spike in the country. We are starting to see what looks like a stabilization dropping. Now, are we at a plateau? Everyone hopes this will continue to come down over the upcoming weeks, that the new behaviors and understanding and acceptance of some of the practices that reduce the spread of the virus are being accepted across the country, and this will help us move forward as a nation. Next slide. California, which early in the pandemic was actually one of the best performing states, also had some lost ground in July. And we have seen that our opening a little too soon resulted in a spike. It looks like we're really doing so terribly, but actually because of our size in the nation, we're about midway. It just looks, our population is so large, we kind of by absolute numbers, we're at the top there. But we are seeing, again, in California, a similar pattern that suggest a drop, and we hope this continues down and right into the fall quarter, so we're in much better shape. Next slide. San Diego also looks very good. And you see the same thing. And I think it's important to look at a couple of factors when you're looking at viral activity. The absolute number of cases, which as testing is around, that plays a role, but it's the percent of positivity. And we're also seeing that the percent of positivity is dropping in San Diego. That's very encouraging. But we are very cognizant that the population where we're seeing the rise is in the young adult population, which clearly has implications for us on the campus. Next slide. So we are very fortunate in our university, next slide please, because we have some incredible scientific knowledge, and we have been planning for months to think about how to safely open the campus and support our community. So with that scientific talent and a lot of hard work, we have a very strong plan which has 3 core elements. Part of it is reducing the actual risk of the virus. Then we need to detect the virus in an early state to minimize spread. And then we have to have interventions, ways of identifying cases, exposure, and caring for our community who may inadvertently acquire this virus and need our support. Underlying this approach is a clear recognition that this is incredibly dynamic. The science is evolving, the viral activity nationally, locally is changing, and we need to adapt and respond to the local environment. We follow the requirements of our county public health. We pay attention to national and as well as state rules as well. So we're making sure that we're fully in compliance with any requirements. And our effort is to protect our community and allow the education of our students and all of our campus missions to be fulfilled. Next slide. So one of the things, and ABC Jensen referred to this, is thinking about what kind of campus, what do we physically have to do? So we've had some scientific modeling, engineering reviews to address exactly the questions of how many people should be on the campus at any one time? How should the dorm rooms be set up? Classroom sizes, what kind of activities? So there's been a lot of planning, and we're doing some things to maximize the safety and encourage physical distancing. Next slide. Next slide. We also are, using markers to show physical distancing, blocking off seating, etc. We're making hand hygiene more accessible with a lot more hand sanitizing stations throughout the campus, in the dorm areas. So access to hand sanitization will be widespread. There'll be a lot of signage for masking. We're going to be very clear that if you are out of your personal residence, out of the place that you live, if you are on the campus, you will be masking, with some very simple exceptions in order to eat. If you're swimming, or if you happen to be alone in your personal office, we'll be wiping down surfaces frequently, so we reduce viral presence. And we also want to remind the students that they shouldn't do certain things, such as share drinks, food, utensils, etc. So we'll be working with the students, and we're actually seeking some communication tools from our student body, and they've been very helpful about how to message this so we get a culture of compliance, because we know that when the whole community together responds and follows these practices, we have the best chance of reducing viral spread and keeping all of us safe. Next slide. So how are we going to do this early detection? We have a couple things going on that are unusual. We're going to do environmental sampling of the waste coming out of our buildings. That will tell us if the occupants of that building, someone is inadvertently shedding virus, and we can do aggressive testing to find the individual who may not even realize they're shedding virus. We'll do some asymptomatic testing of our entire campus community. It will be on a periodic risk-based assessment starting in the fall quarter. This summer, we are gradually doing progressive population, a baseline asymptomatic test for our campus community, including our students. So that will be an important component. We won't only be relying on symptomatic testing, but we will have very easy access to symptomatic testing. Our students can be tested. It will be at no cost to them or their family, because as you know, insurance is not supposed to charge any co-pays. At Student Health, we don't care what the student's insurance. It will not matter if you're SHIP, you're RAFT, you're fee for service. We will get you tested. We will get you tested quickly, and we'll get your results back. We're very fortunate to have deep laboratory capacity right now for all the symptomatic cases, and we're expanding the capacity to deal with asymptomatic testing, which is why we'll be able to do the periodic surveillance testing of the fall. All right. We also are working to support individuals, and I'll speak to that in a little more detail, how that impacts the students who might acquire the virus. Next slide. For students, again, student health is there for the students. We have testing sites also for students that can live off campus. We're using the health system sites, so easy access to testing should you have symptoms, should you have an exposure. When a student is ill and acquires this virus, we do daily check-ins by the student health team to make sure they're doing well. So far, none of our students have had to be hospitalized. Should they need to be hospitalized, we will recommend that they go into our health system because we have great confidence in the quality and safety of the care in general, and they have very deep knowledge in COVID care with some very structured clinical protocols as well as access to the latest in clinical trials. We have some of the leading virologists in the world on our campus, and so we're very fortunate to have very good COVID care. Students can often continue their academic instruction if they're mildly affected by the virus or even asymptomatic, but some of them will need academic accommodations, and our faculty is fully supportive of that. Students who need to go into quarantine or isolation, we've made arrangements for that. Students living on campus, we have some dedicated housing with a private bedroom and a bathroom, and our housing and dining team will bring meals to these students, and we provide it if they need some other services. We'll figure out how to get them to the students living on campus. For students living off campus, we've made some arrangements with local hotels so that if they don't feel they can stay in the current living arrangement off campus that they have, they will have access to more affordable isolation housing in some of our hotel partners. And our financial aid team will work with those who have constraints financially. So we're trying to support not only those students who are on campus, but we also have a large community of students that will be off campus in the fall quarter. Thank you, and I'll be answering questions later on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sosha. You can imagine a lot of questions about how frequent people will be tested and what types of tests we're doing. So we'll have plenty of questions for you during Q&A, but thank you for that starter information. Next up is Himlata Havara, who is our Executive Director of Housing and Dining and Hospitality Services on our campus. Thank you, Himlata.
Thank you, Ebony. I'm happy to share some updates with housing and dining. As you can imagine, housing and dining never shut down. So even while the pandemic began in March, we still were open for our students who couldn't go home for various reasons, or this was their home. So we had 6,000 students that were living with us in the spring and 4,000 this summer. But we've made a lot of changes based on what we have learned about COVID-19 and the pandemic. The first one being we have taken out all the triples in all housing. So that means a reduction of 2,075 beds. So again, we have decreased density very quickly. In preparation for move-in, which is coming around the corner soon, it will be over 10 days. A normal move-in would be 3 days. And in order to, again, make sure students get here safely, they're tested when they arrive on campus, they get to their residential area very quickly, get unloaded. Students will be receiving an email towards the end of this month to sign up for a move-in time. We do this every year, so it's a very normal process for us. Since we cannot have 10,000 students moving in at the same time, and with the pandemic, we're even more sensitive about it to make sure that there is adequate physical distancing at the elevator. Again, as students are arriving on campus, so students will be signing up in about 15-minute increment, again, with their sign-up dates starting September 19th. We also know that it's a lot to ask of our students that, let's say if the first group is arriving on September 19th, we're testing the entire community every single day, so about 1,000 students every day. And while everyone's being tested, we're asking students to truly limit their movement to close to their residential area. So of course, it also means that we need to make sure we're keeping our students busy. So we do have planned activities in place in collaboration with our residential team We know our students love DIY projects, so we will be giving them DIY painting kits, potting their plants. This was an extremely successful event last year when we did the night bazaar with over 3,000 students, so we won't be able to do that, but we will bring it to them individually in their residential area. Our rec sports team will be planning virtual hikes, so students know that if they safely wanted to explore the neighboring area of our campus, how to do that safely. So all students who reside in on-campus housing will be expected to participate in a daily symptom screening. And what that means is that every single day, they will answer questions of if they have any symptoms do you have the flu, do you have the cough, do you have the cold? And if any of them, if they indicate as yes, a health member will be reaching out to the student to again make sure that they're doing well. And if they are truly exhibiting any symptoms, they will be offered a test right away. Again, students that are arriving on campus for move-in, they will be offered the free SARS-CoV testing as part of the move-in. So that will be the very first step. Again, our goal is to identify and isolate any individual who could be unintentionally spreading the virus. In the event a student tests positive, they'll move to isolation housing. And on the next slide, I'll share more information about it because I know there was questions about it. Right, so in the event a student is moved to isolation housing, it is a completely separate designated housing where only students that need isolation housing will be living there. They will be assigned to their own bedroom, bathroom, like Dr. Sosha talked about. And again, all their basic needs will be met. Food will be delivered to them. We have a great culinary team. So if students have any dietary needs, our team can meet it. So we will work with the students every single day on what would they like for their menu to be, and again, delivering what the students would like from a hot menu or even the marketplace in our dining areas. They will receive care from student health and well-being services on a daily basis. Now, in the event the student is coming to campus from an international location, CDC guidelines is recommending a 14-day quarantine, and so is the San Diego Public Health is requiring, again, a 14-day quarantine. In order to make this process as easy as possible for the students that are living on campus, we have designated a separate building, not the isolation building, for quarantine housing. So as soon as students are arriving from the airport, they will go into this quarantine housing. Again, it will be one student per bathroom. We will make sure that there's linens, toilet paper, the unit is ready to go, because again, we know they're coming from the airport. Wi-Fi and cable will again be ready to go as soon as students arrive. Again, students will be able to tell us if they have any dietary needs, and we can fine-tune their menu for them. Again, if students need quarantine housing, the sooner they let us know, the better. We have ample space, so we're not going to run out of it. So, but it'll just be good for us to know ahead of time if students know that they do need quarantine housing. Now, of course, students, we've been getting questions about can they complete their 14-day quarantine housing at home if they're coming back from an international location, and instead of staying in quarantine housing, they'd like to stay with friends off campus. I mean, the San Diego County guideline just tells the students to do the 14-day quarantine, and so that would fall within the guideline as long as they complete their 14 days. Now, in the event a student does not want to do their quarantine on campus, they would like to do it at a hotel. Campus also has pre-negotiated rates with local hotels, which is also available on the HDH FAQ website.
Thank you so much, Himlada. It was a great dose of information that you provided, and it answered some of the questions that people have been asking us ahead of time. Next up on our queue is Dulce Dorado. She's over our International Student Programs Office and has some great information for those of you who might be international student parents.
Thank you. Hi, thank you, Ebony. First, to all of the parents, I really wanted to congratulate you and your students for their admission to UC San Diego. All of us at UC San Diego are really looking forward to welcoming your students and helping them through their journey here. Today, what I'd like to do is provide some important visa and immigration information for our international parents. The first one involves the Student Exchange Visitor Program updates regarding fall 2020. Now, how does this impact your students? First of all, it's determined by, number one, your student's enrollment status at UC San Diego. So whether they're a new student or a continuing student. And second, where they will be located during the fall term. So if your students are new and they've been admitted to UC San Diego and they're currently outside of the United States, they'll have two options. They can either begin their program of study remotely and then join us at a future term, or they can arrive in the United States, but will need to be enrolled in at least one in-person or hybrid course. If your student is in the process of enrolling in courses this week, they should contact their college or department advisors to get enrollment advice and information so that they can plan accordingly. Next slide. The second item here is the visa for students that need a visa to enter the United States. The US State Department is currently implementing a phased resumption of visa services around the world. So we recommend that students check the website for all of the local embassies and consulates to see what the interview dates and which dates are available for them. The third update is that there are still 5 geographic location proclamations that may impact a student's travel to the United States. So those are still in effect, and we advise our students and their parents assisting with travel arrangements to please check to make sure that you're aware of those travel restrictions that may impact your students. Next slide, please. And these are all of the web resources that we have, especially for our incoming students. The two that I would like, or the three that I'd like to highlight. First one is the International Students and Programs Office website. It's very straightforward, so it's istudents.ucsd.edu. We also have a frequently asked questions page where many of the questions that either you or your students are asking are on this frequently asked questions page, so please check that out. And of course, the last one that we have is that for all new international students, we will be having virtual orientation. We're actually having those, an extended orientation, and some of the sessions already started this week. So please check our inewstudent.ucsd website for all of those virtual workshops and orientation sessions for your students. And that's all I have. Thank you, Ebony.
Well, that was a lot. That wasn't just all you had. Thank you so much, Dulce. Next up is our question and answer. In a few minutes, I'll be asking all of our panelists to turn on their cameras. But first, I'd like to acknowledge, thank you for being here. I hope you found the information we've given thus far very valuable. Thank you for submitting questions. We had over 525 questions submitted through 3 different platforms in order to support what was presented and pre-curated to answer some of your questions. We know some of you still have burning questions. We've had over, it looks like 250 questions submitted today. 100 of them have already been answered in private or public responses, as we have more than just our panel here. And so I want you to know we're working very diligently to get to answering your questions. We're aware we won't answer all of your questions, but we're doing our best today to curate some of the generic themes that have come up with some details mixed in. We're working to this week or this month to try to have an opportunity for us to have call-in hours for you as parents to get those unique questions answered. The colleges may already provide some of that support as well. Next slide, please. So shortly, I'll be joined by this great list of panelists. Most of them you've already heard from. The 2 that'll be joining us new are Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Retention and Success, Maruth Figueroa, and the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Life, Patty Mahaffey. Please, can everyone turn on their cameras and turn on, well, don't turn on your mic yet, I guess, until I call on you. Thank you so much. It looks like you're actually seeing some of our secret panel, so just know that there are some people working in the background to answer your questions. With that, I'm ready to go with our first question. Once I find my chat, oh, there's my chat, perfect. So the first question is going to Sherry and Himlada. Can parents assist their students to move into the dorms, or are they required to move their belongings in by themselves? And I think we said we'd go to Himlada for this one.
Sounds good. I'm happy to kick it off. So, moving is such a large process, especially for incoming students. And while we don't want to take that away, we do want to make sure we do it in a safe manner. So students will be allowed to bring two in their move-in party with them. We will be asking that while students are going through the testing, if the student is driving, they can be in the driver's seat. If they're not driving, to be in the passenger seat, to allow for us to easily identify the student and do the testing. Once they do arrive to their residential location, they will park. The student will go pick up their key by themselves while the move-in party waits for the student to come back. And when the student does, the move-in party can help students move in. We're saying a limit about 45 minutes. The elevators will have a limitation as well. The student and their move-in party can use the elevator at the same time. But again, we're asking to complete it in 45 minutes. So non-residents are spending limited time in the residential area. And then after they move in, you're welcome to spend time with your student on the outside in our seating areas that will be physically distanced with proper marking.
And I'd like to add to that we're asking that any family members, as well as the students, if you are symptomatic, delay coming to campus. We'd rather you be well and not arrive ill. So we will want to make sure that everybody is keeping an eye on their symptoms before arriving, and we'll want our students to actually begin their daily symptom screening 3 weeks before they come onto campus and get care should they have symptoms before arrival, and that the family members be masked and respect our campus community agreement that we will all be masking in the public areas. So very important that the entire family have a mask available and keep masked when they are on our campus.
While I have the two of you, there's a lot of questions about who's being requested to quarantine. Is it just our international students? Is it just our out-of-state students?
Right now, the CDC and then is the national is for international travel. And that may seem illogical because we know there are some parts of this country with very significant viral activity. But California does not have any quarantine restrictions, unlike some of our other states. Should that change, then we'll have to make an adaptation. But for right now, it is just for the international students. Again, it's a 14-day period. And quarantine is when you are thought to be at risk or there's been an exposure, versus isolation when you're known to actually have the virus. It's a little bit different.
Thank you so much for that nuance. Vice Chancellor Satterlin, I'm coming to you. It's our famous question. Can you explain why fees will remain the same while we're changing to a virtual hybrid educational system in the fall? And will fees be reduced for our out-of-state students?
So thank you for the question. It's an important one. I want to remind everybody that all tuition fees are set at the UC Office of the President. And with that in mind, we are doing our very best to ensure both a high quality remote and in-person student experience, and working exceptionally diligently to make sure that all of our services that are funded by student activity fees are exceptional, both those that are delivered through an in-person experience, if you're going to be living on campus, or like many of you, remotely and virtually. But at this time, we are not anticipating reduction in tuition and fees, but I imagine that you will be informed immediately, as we all will through the UC Office of the President, should that actually occur.
Thank you so much. I'm sure it's a pressing question for everyone at this time. Coming to Angela and or Carlos. According to the San Diego County, per public health, There is no school, including college or university, shall hold in-person classes unless it's for research or essential worker training. How is UCSD complying with this?
Right now, we're in agreement with that, and we will continue to be in agreement. And if we have to stay remote at the beginning of the fall term, we will. But we are optimistic that we are seeing a reduction, which will allow our county to open the doors and allow us to have, maybe not, we don't ever expect to have large auditoriums of students with many packed like the past, but we will have the ability to have small groups of students, large spaces with more students, et cetera, distancing, and students actually to engage in more in-person activities, so that the hybrid model we've discussed and planned for will be able to go into play in October when classes start. So we'll be watching it closely. We think it's an important question, but we're planning today for something that, as you mentioned, things change very quickly, and we think things will look a little better in 6 to 8 weeks from now.
ABC Jensen, you're good? Anything you want
Yeah,
to
I
add?
mean, we have to aim for where we think we're going to be and where we want to be and where we're working to be in 6 weeks from today, not where we are today. And we're making a lot of investments and a lot of improvements to campus to make this as safe and productive an experience as it can be.
Thank you both so much, Dr. Sosha and ABC Jensen. I think I really want to reinforce at this time that UC San Diego is committed to allowing for you as families to make the decision that's right for you. There are families who would be better served by having their student on campus for a various amount of reasons, be it connecting with others who are doing the same type of work, having an individual space to study, or being around like-minded individuals who are aiming for the same goals. It also may be a Wi-Fi issue. So there's a lot of reasons why people may choose to come to campus. We are not interested in making that decision for you. We are interested in the case that you choose to come to our campus, making sure it's safe, making sure that you have options, and making sure that your child or your loved one is engaged and able to achieve their goal of getting their degree. So we really wanted to make sure you had as many choices as possible to serve your family and your needs during this time. And we are optimistic, but of course, as you saw, 30% of our classes are being offered in person and the other 70 are remote and hybrid. So we're ready, right? All right, the next question, they're going to our shared AVCs, Patty and Maroof. What on-campus facilities do you envision being open or available for students in the fall? Consider libraries, student centers, dining halls. Hemlotta may join in a little bit, but yeah.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So we have our university centers that will be open, and we have several retail establishments inside that space that students can visit for takeaway. We're also leveraging a lot of our outdoor patio spaces, so they'll be able to use those as well if to get food and sit outside. And then we also have a small computer lab inside our Price Center that students can also use. The library has lots of online resources and will be following county guidelines as well. And we should know soon what their plans will be.
So I'll add for dining, we will open up the move-in period with a to-go only. And our hope is that in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we have updated county guidelines. As we know, dining outside is allowed, so we will make sure we have ample seating on the outside, and as the county guidelines allows us to open indoor dining, we will do that, but we will still be maintaining the 6 feet distance. If it's any booths and cubbies, it'll be only for one student.
And I will just add that with regards to students, we are following the same as learning in classroom. We are having 30-70%, so we are definitely actively engaging our students in their virtual space and connecting them with other students, peers, faculty, staff, advisors. But in addition to that, we're also planning along the same lines, what are the spaces that we are able to open following the county guidelines, following the medical experts to engage our students on campus in some of those open spaces. So again, following all of those guidelines, we are expecting to come back with
Ebony, can I also add that we have a very robust online ordering platform for our dining area. For our spring quarter, 85% of the orders were online. So students love the online ordering. They can pick their menu items, customize it, and we will have it ready for them. So again, our students have been using it and they love it.
That is absolutely great to hear. I see that several people have been trying to use the raise your hand functions. We will not be calling on individuals. So if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A, and we're doing our best to curate themes around the questions that are being asked of us. The next question is going back to ABC Jensen. For classes with labs, like genetics, engineering, chemistry, how safe is it for our students to have mandatory presence there? And what are some of the alternative options these departments have come up with to serve our students?
Sure. So every space that we're using for any kind of instruction has been assessed by our building and safety folks. We have upgraded the ventilation on just about every instructional building that we operate. And we are enforcing physical distancing and upgraded PPE. For the classes that have labs that we didn't feel we could do a good enough job, the departments have voluntarily found alternative ways of either meeting that requirement. In some cases, that has been shifting when students are expected to take the class, and in other cases, it's been creating remote experiences. In addition to the lab courses, our faculty will be working with students. The research enterprise is working, and I know that many of your students participate and want to participate in undergraduate research opportunities. Those will take place at, again, using appropriate safety measures and social distancing.
Thank you so much. I know that's been a big question for a lot of our students. I think that we also had some questions around how do people look for employment and what are some of the opportunities post-graduation. And we're happy to say that several jobs that were offered before the pandemic were also filled. Some of the start dates were pushed back. And for others, we've looked to support them through our Career Services Center. We also, I think another big question I saw that is a part of this sort of question around what's next is we are still offering student employment on campus. Several of our areas are still doing professional development and employing students at a rapid pace. As we know, we can be flexible and support their educational needs, and we're excited to continue to do that even during this time. So our next question is sort of a follow-on. Is work study skills being offered? I think I answered a little bit of that. Does anybody else want to add anything to the work study skills? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So we do have work study on campus and remote student employment positions, all of which are available for students and their families to review at Handshake, which is available in our Career Center. We have worked diligently to transition as many of our student employment opportunities into remote work as possible because we did not want the pandemic to have a further negative impact on the ability of our students to earn money. And work study is a very significant contributor to the ability for students to earn a living.
Thank you so much, Allison. The next one's coming to you, Angela. Will you offer saliva tests? It's less painful. And how often will students be tested?
We had tried saliva in our lab, and we're just not happy with the results. But we are very excited because we have an anterior nares approved test. So that does not go as deeply into your nostril way back. It's much more in the early part of your nose, or the anterior part. That's why it's called anterior nares. And so it's a little less uncomfortable. It's more comfortable. Let's put it that way. A little simpler test. So don't be afraid of it. It's super quick and easy. And so we're very happy that our lab got this approval to do this. It will be simpler for the students. Lab capacity is something we're very sensitive to. Right now, we cannot offer wide-scale asymptomatic testing of the campus community. We don't have the depth to do that. We have easy access to all the symptomatic testing, and we are working through in stages asymptomatic testing all of this summer. In the fall, our capacity will be significantly increased and we will go to periodic asymptomatic testing. I see a number of questions that are asking, how often will we do that? It is going to be risk-based. So some groups have a higher risk of exposure and they will be tested more often. Others will be at lower risk, they will be less frequently. If we find that a residential hall or a research lab building there's virus in the waste stream, we will quickly test everybody in that building like the next day. And so there's no absolute plan and it will not be standardized for good reason. We think that that is the most effective way to test individuals and respond to the pandemic situation. And we can adjust quickly and we will have a lot of capacity for frequent testing.
I have two follow-on questions for you. What's the routine for off-campus students to be tested?
So what we're going to do over the summer, we'll be bringing in all the campus residents, and Hamilada explained how in move-in, you'll have a test at the time of move-in. For our students living off campus, we're going to open the doors, if you want to think of that, to testing, which will be done at a central site, which can do large numbers of individuals very efficiently because there'll be multiple stations. And that will begin on September 9th. It will run for a period of about to the 18th. Then we'll take a break to bring all those wonderful undergraduates on who will be coming onto our campus, and we'll focus on bringing them on board. And then we'll reopen for off-campus students who haven't had that baseline test from September 29th to October 2nd. So we think with that, we will begin the fall quarter with our entire community having had an access to a baseline asymptomatic test. And that's, again, in the background of very easy access to symptomatic or exposure testing. So that will continue to go on and always be available.
All right, well, the second of my two follow-on tests, how often, now we have the baseline, people are on campus, our optimism has paid off. How often will students be tested that are on campus?
It will be risk-based. There will be some students that might be every 2 weeks. There may be other students every 6 weeks. A student who is totally remote may be a little less frequent than a student who is coming and involved in certain things. We know that our student athletes, unfortunately, will not be able to compete this fall, but they will be training. And in that setting, we've done the athletic team they're working amazingly to keep them training in pods so the exposures are minimized, but they will, by the nature of athletic training, have a little bit more chance of an exposure. So they may be tested much more frequently than a student who is fully remote. So there's not an exact plan that I want to lay or feel comfortable I can give you today, and it will vary by the nature of what that student is doing on our campus and what their activities are, etc.
Thank you so much. That's a natural segue to a question I have for Vice Chancellor Satterlin. We're Division I this year. Can you give a brief update on our athletics?
I'm frantically trying to answer questions in the chat, Dr. Williams, like you have instructed us to do, so just 1 minute. Well, we're really proud to officially be D1, and we were as of July 1st, and I want to do a shout out to Wendy Taylor and Earl Edwards and our incredible student leaders who've navigated this over the last several years. It's really an exciting advancement for us, and of course our alum supporters and our students. So we're still proceeding. It's certainly not the transition to Division I that we had imagined, but we'll be live streaming our student athletes sharing their workout regimens. We'll be working with our student athletes and our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Board as a part of the work that our athletic director, Earl Edwards, has truly embraced in response to an anti-racism platform and using sport as a mechanism to address social inequality. And of course, when we have the support from the Big West Conference to engage in competition safely, we are very eager to be the champions both on the court and off the court that our student scholar athletes have demonstrated that they're capable of doing, and to celebrate that with their peers at REMAC Arena.
Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Satterlin. The next one is going to ABC Jensen. Will the internet be upgraded so students can actually Zoom and submit work on reliable internet on our campus?
They'll be able to study, they'll be able to Zoom, they'll be able to play games. Yes, we have invested a tremendous amount of time and effort in upgrading as many of the IT systems and as much of the infrastructure as we can. We know there's going to be incredible demand on our internet, and we think we're ready for it.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, I need to pull a new question for us. So let's see what we have not answered yet. Oh, I know one that we could talk about. Several individuals want to know, can we have housing guarantees? So Himlada, it's coming your way with a little bit of possibly Allison and Carlos for class of 2024. If they don't come in the fall, there's a financial burden attached to having to pay and possibly pay for fall to have guaranteed for winter and spring. And then I'll ask a follow-on, but I'll start there. Himlada?
Absolutely. So if a student does not plan to be on campus for fall, they should absolutely cancel their housing contract. Our hope is to open the wait list for winter and spring in November. We will do it sooner if we can. We just need to figure out what is our capacity. And as we all know, the state and county guidelines change rapidly. So we do want to make sure that when we do open up housing for winter and spring, that we are sharing the most updated information. But absolutely, if a student doesn't plan to be on campus for fall, go ahead and cancel your housing contract, and we will open up the wait list as soon as possible.
Definitely, and we definitely have a strong wait list at this time. But on that note, if I do come in winter or spring, is there any support for, you shared with on campus, but for off campus housing that our students, if they have to look for that? I think our ABC Patty Mahaffey might have some good information for that.
Yep, I sure do. So there's a lot of information on our off-campus housing website. So if you go to offcampushousing.ucsd.edu, there's lots of information there that is also embedded in our basic needs website. So basicneeds.ucsd.edu. And our student leaders actually just put together a really great, robust housing guide that you can find there, which is chock full of a lot of good information. We have an off-campus housing coordinator that will help students if they're looking for spaces off campus. And we have a pretty good website to help students connect in that way as well. So any off-campus housing needs, that's where I would direct students to go first. Thanks, Benet.
Yeah, thank you so much. This question may be going to Sherry, but anyone else can chime in. How does my student connect with academic advisors?
Thank you. So we have something called the Virtual Advising Center, and students can submit any advising question there, either for college advising or for departmental advising, and it will get routed appropriately. Our staff are on that all day during the work week, so typically students will get a response within 1 to 2 business days, often quicker than that.
Thank you so much. I've been on this campus a while. I remember when the VAC started. I'm so excited to have it still going. With that, I have a question about gap year. How can my student take a gap year? Should my student take a gap year? I have several of you listed to answer this. So it could be our dean, it could be our vice chancellor, or it could be one of our ABCs. So anyone interested in giving some perspective on gap year?
Wow, are people really gonna pass on that one?
I was like, everybody muted on me. I see how it is.
I know, it's rough. So, I mean, my suggestion is to go to your college academic advising office and have a conversation with one of your advisors. That would be the best way to decide what that would look like if you took a gap year. Classes you'd need to take coming back, if you're going to take classes at a community college, all those things, when you need to withdraw, all those questions could be answered from your Dean of Academic Advising office.
Thank you so much, Patty.
And Dr. Williams, if I can just chime in, this is a very personal question for each family to consider. We at the university are committed to ensuring that our students are actively engaged not only academically but also in campus life. I know that that's also something that students are excited about, returning to campus. It looks a little bit different than it did, a year ago. But we are committed to ensuring that they're making those connections not only with their peers, with faculty, and with staff. And so I know that that is incredibly important for many of our students, specifically also our students who are first generation, who are looking forward to coming back to campus or to coming to campus for the first time to make those connections. But again, it's a decision that is made with family, considering all of these factors. But just know that the university is committed to ensuring that not only the academics, but also those activities engaging them outside of the classroom are as engaging, and they're connected to our campus faculty and staff and students.
Thank you so much, ABC Figueroa. ABC, I've made you oh, that's right, Figueroa. I said it right. Okay, all these VCs, got to say it right. Angela, one of the biggest things that people are concerned about is I've chosen to allow for my student to come. I'm excited about the engagement that Hemlada's team and the colleges are doing with my student. They're in classes, they're behaving because they're going to wear their masks, they're social distancing, and they still end up testing positive. What happens?
Good question. So part of it will depend if it's a student who's on our campus in our residence space or off campus. If they're
Let's start with on campus, yeah.
Sure. If they are in one of our own residential student, they will be moved to a different location if they test positive. And that is to give them a private bedroom, bathroom area, what's called a sick room, so they can stay in that area until they recover with full connections. They're able to do whatever they can academically if they're well enough, or they get accommodations, they get the daily check-in, they get the food delivery. They will be there in all likelihood of at least 10 days and maybe a little longer. Should they become more ill, then we would be asking them to probably be hospitalized for more intensive medical care at the hospital site. That doesn't happen very often in younger folks, but there are some that will become ill, and so we're prepared to do that, and that transport will occur very safely and very quickly. Our health system is very close by. For the students off campus, they'll be given the same instructions you would as a family member if you, when someone in a household becomes ill. And that is that you confine yourself to a sick room. You ideally, if you can segregate one bathroom for that individual, you do that, and you try the family supports, friends support by bringing meals to them, and they don't come out into the common areas. That may not work in every living situation, which is why we've made some arrangements with some of the hotels to do isolation housing even for known positive students at a reduced rate. And again, they will stay in that situation for the period of time for their symptoms to resolve, that they are getting better, that they don't have a fever, and the period is usually at least 10 days, sometimes a little longer.
Thank you so much. As you can imagine, loved ones really want to know, if I allow them to come to campus, how will they be taken care of, and will you be able to? So I really appreciate all the thought that you've put in and the team has put in for them.
And I forgot to mention something that's really important. Our CAPS, our Counseling and Psychological Services team, is really checked and attentive to this as well. And they do video remote encounters and therapeutic counseling sessions for all of our students. We've almost switched to virtual counseling rather than in-person counseling. That's safer for the students, safer for the team. Our urgent care center on campus is open for urgent needs, but most of the mental health support has gone to a virtual process. And our students in isolation or quarantine get full support, and we ask them, do you need any help? We try and make sure that they have outlets and they're supported in not just their physical health, but their entire well-being when they are going through what is a tough period.
Thank you so much for that additional ad. Hemlata, coming back to you. Oh, perfect. You add too, and then I have a question for you. This works out perfectly.
Sounds good. So I also wanted to add that in the event a student tests positive and we would move them to isolation housing, we would also make sure that we would immediately come and clean the residence hall suite or apartment where the student was positive. So it would be a deep clean. It takes a good few hours. And so we would ask all occupants to leave their room for a few hours. We would clean, and then we would let the students know that they're good to go back.
And I'll follow up a little with that as well, because what do? It's not my student, but it's the roommate of my student, or it's the suite mate or apartment mate of my student. And those are really important questions, because now they are at a very different risk of exposure, because we're not asking our students when they're in their residential space to be masked the entire time. If you happen to be one of the students who is sharing in a bedroom, that is a fairly high risk exposure situation. It's not absolute, but it's a higher risk than the roommates who have separate bedrooms. And we will probably suggest and recommend that that student also goes into an isolation space, just to minimize the chance of others in the apartment and suite. And again, it depends on how many individuals are there. It's a case-by-case assessment. They might probably be asked to go and support it so that they don't, because no one wants to expose anybody else. We know that our students want to take care of each other. And so a student doesn't want to expose anyone. And so we'll consider moving them to isolation support. Even though they're in quarantine, they're not in isolation. Other suite mates, where we think the exposure is less of a risk, we may have them quarantine and ask them to stay in their residential space, bring them food, do the remote learning. Because when you're in quarantine, you really shouldn't be leaving your household. You should be staying put. Unlike, so there's everybody, then there's quarantine, there's isolation. I think of it as tightening circles. So in quarantine, you really should be staying in your residence. You shouldn't go to small group discussion. Let's say you're having in-person class. We will ask you not to do that. We will ask you not to leave the residence at all for that 14-day period while you're in quarantine. And we'll offer you support and check-in, etc. So we have to think not only of the positive student, but exposure, because despite everyone's best effort, and I think we all have to accept this, we're all trying our very best. Any one of us could acquire this virus. The only way to avoid it is to live in a totally isolated bubble and have your own food supply living with you. But at some point we all have to go out, and it's not healthy not to do some of these things. But we're trying to make an environment and instructions to our students that really minimizes the chance. And we've done a lot to make sure we don't have large outbreaks or a lot of viral activity on the campus. And the students, we have thousands of students living on the campus right now, and we're not seeing viral activity. They're very respectful of the rules we put into place, the good practices, they're embracing this. And so we believe we can have individuals living on our campus in our residential units very safely. And it will be good for them and good for the campus community.
Hemlata, I'm gonna give you a little break. I'm gonna do a little ad lib, and then I'm coming back to you. There's a question about athletics. Are they being housed together? Is there a special situation? So Angela and Hemlata, I'm going to answer. You can correct anything I understand. But my understanding is that our athletes are gonna be able to come to campus as they traditionally would, a little bit before everyone else, but they will be housed in team units to create a family-like scenario within their teams in order to just reduce and control as best we can the spread if anyone ended up getting contracted with COVID. So is that a good answer? Is there anything you want to add to athletics?
So Ebony, I would say that is true for summer. Once the fall quarter begins, even our athlete scholars will be in their residential colleges. And again, our infectious experts have done a lot of modeling, and they feel very comfortable with our athlete scholars living in their residential community, participating in all the activities that is so crucial to being in a college.
Yeah, and some of the athletes we know choose to live together off campus. And so the group that is like in a household bubble, if you want to think of that, because they're kind of together, that group will do some of their training a little more with each other rather than training with everybody. So the athletic trainers are really, we're working very hard. We meet every week to try and figure out how can we safely do this and bring sport back in safely for the students. And it's important to them to stay conditioned and to train. When we get these things figured out for our athletes, eventually we'll do some thinking about how we do this for the broader student community, because these are young adults who want to stay physically active, and it's tough. Luckily we have this beautiful campus, a lot of outdoor space. People can get outside. They can do quite a bit. But some of the sports, we won't be having basketball pickup games for a while. We just have to be reasonable. Sorry about that.
That made some of us sad. All right, Himlata. All right, here we go. You can pass on this next question, but I think you may know it. Someone asked, how often will the bathrooms be cleaned in the dorms?
Absolutely. So students who are in residential suites and not in apartments, their bathrooms are going to be cleaned 5 days a week. And students who are in an apartment usually tends to be a smaller density, that is once a week. But even in addition to that, our custodial team is doing frequent cleaning of high-touch areas. So when you think about elevator buttons, doorknobs in common spaces, hallways, our custodial team is doing a great job of disinfecting and wiping everything down multiple times during the day.
And also, I think it's nice because the housing and dining team is making cleaning tools available to the students. They can go down to the front desk and they can choose to clean more often. So there'll be easy access to cleaning tools and supplies.
And I'm sure the parents and family members who have loved ones who like to clean more often are very proud of that, but some of us don't. So we're glad to have the support of professionals to make sure that there's some safety amongst the situation. Himlata, last question for the evening for you. I have a few more for everyone else. Is, will dining dollars from 2019-2020 be refunded if students are not returning to campus?
Yes, it would not be an issue if the student will just email the housing office and let us know that the student does not plan to be on campus for fall, and we will make the refund.
Thank you. Second to last question, AVC Jensen, Carlos, will students have access to online tutors and academic support?
Absolutely. So we have been offering supplemental instruction, tutoring, and a variety of different support services, all remote this whole spring term and over the summer. That will continue into fall term. We will have some in-person availability. Probably need to make an appointment and things like that, but we will offer all of our services remotely.
ABC Figueroa, would you like to add anything to that? I know I didn't offer you the space. You don't have to. It's just an opportunity. Okay.
Nope, similar to ABC Jensen, virtual and also in person. And so yeah, we're looking forward to assisting students.
All right. The big question. It's going back to Vice Chancellor Satterlin. How will you enforce social distancing? Mask wearing? All the things that we need for our students to be safe.
Right, so it's a great question, and we've seen our colleagues at colleges and universities around the country learning a lot, particularly those who have had large summer sessions or are in neighborhoods and college communities where there's a lot of immediately accessible social activities. And we've been in touch with those colleagues to steal best practices and learn from what has occurred in their communities so that we can be well prepared, or as well prepared as possible. We're really thinking about, first and foremost, social norming. Dr. Sosha mentioned earlier that we have thousands of students who've been living on our campus right now who have been modeling outstanding social behavior in this regard. Wearing masks, practicing good hygiene, being thoughtful about physical distancing, being mindful of their activities off campus and on campus as well. And we'll continue to expect this. We have also been learning about ambassador programs. UCLA has a great health ambassador program. We learned about this in the UC system most recently. Dr. Mahaffey was on a call and shared this information with us. I was on a call and also shared this information. And our student health and wellbeing cluster have been looking at how do we use peer health educators, partner with our resident assistants, support our staff members as well. All of us will be on the front lines, just like we are in our neighborhoods and in our own homes with our loved ones and in our communities. We also have developed an interim student conduct policy that allows us to address with sanctions as appropriate for students who are intentionally engaging behaviors that may in fact put other community members at risk. And we are comfortable utilizing that tool, but we know first and foremost that the most important strategies that we can use are to utilize the goodwill and the commitment of our students to manage their own health and well-being and to be respectful of the health and well-being of others. There's a great literature, not to make some parents uncomfortable, but there's a great literature on helping young adults mature into healthy healthy sexual practices. Very similar approach here in the work that we need to be doing in helping our students be safe in this regard as well. So we'll be using every tool we have available and also reminding our students to listen to their loved ones, to their moms and dads, who we know will be reinforcing these values as well when they do their regular check-ins with their kiddos.
Thank you so very much, Vice Chancellor Satterlin. Thank you to this amazing panel, to our doctors, our directors, our ABCs. It's been a great evening. I know some of you have questions about when move-in dates will be shared. Please look for communications from your colleges. This has been a great evening. You've received over 525 questions. At some point had 1,500 parent and family members with us, listening and getting information to make the best decision for your family. We're doing all we can to provide you as many choices as possible to be with us here in the case that it is safe, but we also very much so understand that that choice is very different and unique for each one of your families, and our college advisors and our other administrators are here to answer as many questions as possible. You can check the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs website. You can check the Return to Learn website for frequent asked questions, and please stay aware of communications. I highly encourage you to go to the parent and family college orientations, as they will share other information and be able to give you some deep dive answers to questions that you may have. With that, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to all of our panelists. We're so excited to have your loved ones be able to move forward their degrees and their goals. We are with you in the fact that we are unable to predict the future, and it's very challenging for everyone. And we're doing what we can to be responsible to make sure all of your loved ones have all the resources they need to achieve their goals and be safe. Thank you for joining us tonight. Bye, everyone.